The world saw video of the death of Daniel Prude, the 41-year-old black man suffering a crisis who died on a cold Rochester street last March, naked and handcuffed with a spit hood on his head while police put physical pressure on his head and body. The medical examiner ruled it a homicide, caused in part by asphyxiation, the controversial diagnosis of excited delirium, and PCP But when assessing the evidence, Monroe County grand jurors reached a conclusion that's common in cases where police use force. They declined to bring an indictment. Over and over again, New York prosecutors or grand juries have assessed civilian deaths at the hands of police and determined the evidence isn't strong enough to sustain a criminal case against the officers involved. State Attorney General Letitia James has her own explanation as to why. State law and decades of court precedent give police officers significant leeway when it comes to using potentially lethal force. The system was built to protect and shield officers from wrongdoing and accountability, James said Tuesday after announcing the Prude grand jury's decision. The system too often allows officers to use deadly force unnecessarily and without consequence, and that is a system that at its core is broken. The State Attorney General's office has taken on 42 cases in which police are suspected of causing the death of an unarmed civilian since 2015, when Governor Andrew Cuomo first granted the office the ability to investigate such incidents. A handful of those cases, including Prude's, had been presented to a grand jury or gone to trial. None of them have resulted in a single conviction, either because the grand jury declined to indict or because the state lost in court. James' office issued a report Tuesday explaining the circumstances of Prude's death, which was captured on police body cameras and spurred protests across Rochester and the nation. Want more stories like this? Sign up for USA Today's This Is America newsletter. Because of New York's secrecy laws, James has not been allowed to discuss what evidence was presented to the grand jury, though a Monroe County judge ruled the minutes can soon be unsealed. But in the report, James' office included a general discussion of the challenges in successfully bringing a case against a police officer who used force. The report walks through all the long and legally complicated questions prosecutors and a grand jury would have to consider to determine if an officer using force can be criminally culpable for someone's death. Among them, did the officers have legal justification for their actions? Did the officers intentionally or recklessly cause the death? Were they acting with criminal negligence, meaning they grossly failed to perceive the risk of their action? Did they use physical force or deadly physical force? If they used deadly physical force, did the officers have a reasonable justification?